Hey y'all, I'm Leah.
And I'm Rachel.
We're two wives and a spark. As new parents and as an interracial couple, we're on a mission to connect with others and explore how race and politics influence so much for families like ours.
Yes, we believe intentional conversations are vehicles for change. So we're committed to learning in public and having real talk every step of the way.
And you know what? Maybe, just maybe one conversation at a time, we can make the world a better place.
I think so. So let's jump in, y'all.
All right, y'all. Two Mom Browns. We're so excited to have y'all here with us and excited that we get to have personal time with you. We love following your journey on Instagram and just being in community with you, but it is an honor to have you on today's podcast.
Yeah. Oh my goodness. Thank you guys for having us.
Yeah, so happy to be here.
We've been looking forward to this for a while.
Oh, that means so much to us.
We have a little special guest in this one too. We have baby Malachi in this episode.
Hanging out with us here today.
We're going to turn it over to y'all because we have the opportunity and the blessing to be able to follow you, but we just want to make sure everyone who's listening knows who you are so you can introduce yourselves and just tell us more about your beautiful family.
All right. Well, we are an interracial lesbian couple. We're raising biracial donor-conceived kids, and we live in like the Washington, D.C. metro area. And we did reciprocal IVF to start our family. So I carried Amanda's egg. And I should say I'm Lauren and
I'm Amanda.
So, on this podcast, we talk a lot about the influence of race and politics and how that influences communities like ours and families like ours. So we'd love to hear from both of you just about your journey and how this current volatile political landscape has really impacted all of us. What does that look like for you all as parents and as a couple?
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, I mean, it's heavy, right?
Yeah.
It's a lot. It's something that we as African Americans don't really get to step in and out of. It's something that we live and breathe constantly. So yeah, I think I just wanted to start with that. It's a heavy conversation. I think that we're really privileged to live in a diverse area, but we're not shielded by our area, right? We have to prepare our family and our boys for any type of situation. And that really starts with kind of building a foundation, and kind of what we're starting with right now is education, right? With Judah, who's 2, who is understanding more and more every day of the world. So it starts with books and, the curiosity of, mommy, what color is mommy's skin? It's white. And what color is mama's skin? Oh, it's brown. So kind of just recognizing those differences is where he fits in.
Yeah, no, I think that's exactly where, we're at. Amanda and I also talk a lot about how the experiences that we have had in life is not even going to be similar to the experiences that our children are going to have as boys, and being biracial, they're going to have just a completely different experience. And, Amanda and I talk a fair amount about how about like the intersection or intersectionalities together, right? And how like I'll be driving down the street, I will, miss my turn, and I will totally like slow down and do like a little U-turn, and go back. Whereas like, Amanda would never dream of doing something like that, right? The repercussions for her would undoubtedly be more severe. And so just kind of recognizing that with our boys, like, how do we teach them about the burden that they carry in the world? How do we teach them that you need to be beyond reproach? Those are things that Amanda and I are just thinking so much about right now. Like,
yeah, I mean, I think there's a couple of things that you just said there, Lauren, that I think are really rich. One thing that I just thank you for sharing, because Rachel and I had this conversation about driving. And when we first started dating, she was like, you don't never go over the speed limit. And I'm like, right. I like my life. Like, you know what I mean? Like, it's something I don't overthink about either. I've been trained to, okay, that's a law or a rule, follow it. I don't need anything extra in my day, right? And so it wasn't until really we start having those types of conversations that you realize, and I don't know if you all are having the same moment, but it sounds like you are, in terms of you want to teach your kid that, but also you don't want to steal that joy from, right?
Yeah,
like,
right.
so it's like, it is my responsibility, especially as a Black person in our relationship as Ember's, Black parent, to like make sure she understands the world around her for both of us. But there is a little deeper connection that we're going to have to that. But at the same time, I want you to be in the store getting your scream on because something is exciting you and not overthinking about like, who is she bringing too much noise into this space, right? Like it's this double whammy. And as we've been navigating, and I've been telling Rachel this, like I have experienced a lot of healing as I'm witnessing, I've internalized that. Like, I don't speak up in these ways as much anymore because I've internalized the safety factor in that. Thank you for sharing those examples.
Yeah. Thank you also for acknowledging the heaviness of this. We always just like jump right into the deep end, but thank you for just saying out the gate, like there is a weight to this conversation that it is a privilege to even have the space to talk about this in this moment. I'm feeling that. And then I'm also feeling like, right, I think there is a reason why sometimes folks don't choose to jump into the deep end because parenting is hard enough. And it's like, there's already a lot of layers of stress and pain and trauma that people are grappling with. So just thank you for acknowledging that there is a heaviness to this. And it's also something that we feel like, okay, if we have it amongst our community, if we're able to open the doors for other people to get a little bit more comfortable talking about these layers, then maybe that will help other folks develop the skills, the tools, the vulnerability and strength to lean in,
Absolutely. Because it really isn't such an important conversation to have and for people to hear.
And we know every state looks different. The LGBTQIA plus community is under attack in so many states right now, and just across the country with bills and legislation. How has that looked for you, locally or just in your state? Or I know it's kind of like these two worlds. We have our social media world and then our going to the grocery store world and then flying on airplanes world. They're all kind of different. But what does it look like for you all if you're open to sharing?
Yeah, I think, there's, like you said, like a lot of layers in a lot of different places, right? A lot of different spaces, because Virginia has tended to have, we've had a Democratic governor for many, many years, but we currently have a Republican governor. I don't know how that happened. But there's been a lot of anti-LGBTQ plus legislation initiated over the last year it's been specifically. And most of them we all shut down, not really, not much has gotten through, but there are a lot of people outside of this metro area and a lot of people outside of, the more urban spaces in the state who are on board with this legislation and do feel almost like the sense of like confirmation of like, oh yeah, that's what I've been saying all along. And so there's a lot of like rising tensions, like you guys put it. And so I think, we kind of, like Amanda is saying, like, we walk around on a day-to-day basis. We're not the only lesbian couple that we see. We're not the only 2-mom family. We're not the only
interracial couple.
Yeah. This area is more, more brown than it is white. And so there is some sense of like peace that we feel in that, at least to raise our kids, and just like being very cognizant of the fact that like we never want to go to a place where our kids are the only ones. Right. Like we want them to be around family structures that are similar. And we do have a lot of friends who have children, which is a really fun, thing.
Yeah. I feel like at least in, the people that we've surrounded ourselves with has truly been people who look like us, other 2-mom families, other interracial families. It's really other donor conceived families, and so it's really been, I think, a blessing for us to look back and, see another family that's so similar. I think a lot of, I guess, what's happening around us with the legislation and all of that really hasn't truly hit us yet, just because we don't have kids that are school age, but we are very much aware of what's going on. We're very much keeping up to date with everything that's happening.
Oh yeah, and it affects a lot of, you know, what I do. I'm a therapist. I have a psychotherapy practice here for LGBTQIA folks, and you know, kids are suffering, teens are suffering. There's a lot of misunderstanding around what being transgender means, and a lot of just trying to control and hurt children, you know, and
control those spaces that kids are in.
We're seeing a ton of that right now in Texas. But the noise is creating what they're calling this like chilling effect, right? Where like all these legislative bills are coming through with this negative language just around people's freedoms, right? And even though they've not been made to law and there's no like nothing on the books about them, organizations, businesses, systems are already responding to the language and pulling funding from PI things or pulling funding from LGBTQ plus things. And it's like, there's no law, there's nothing in the book, right? But that strategy is already creating a fear-based community, and it's impacting, even with no law on the books, impacting families that look like ours, right? And who look like us and who are enjoying the life that, like, we love the life that we get to live. We love knowing that there are plenty of people that came before us to fight for us to be able to be in the situation that we are. We hate the fact that there's so much language out there that then we have to one day sit down and explain to Ember, right? And sit down and figure out how to help her understand why our family does deserve to exist and should exist and all those things. And so it's devastating in that regard, for sure.
It really is. I feel like, you know, not all of that legislation is being passed. It is creating that noise and people are listening. And I think people who maybe, you know, had those quiet voices within themselves are now feeling like, oh, wait, I'm feeling validated. And let me be louder with my voice that echoes that noise that I'm hearing. And so it really is just creating this kind of wave, right, that we're seeing more and more of. And like I said, you know, that noise that is now people are feeling validated by, it's getting louder. And so it's, you know, how do we navigate a world with louder negative voices against our families, and also, you know, try to protect our families, try to protect our young kids from the noise, right? But also educate them on how to navigate their world as well.
Kind of looping that around to our kids. It's like, you know, I feel like, you know, Judah barely turned 2 and we're just talking to him about everything. You know, we just talk and it's so much fun. And it feels so good to be able to have conversations with our 2-year-old that it's just the beginning, you know, it's just the beginning, and the little tiny conversation that we are having are going to grow as insight grows. And, you know, it can be scary, but it cannot and, you know, like you even mentioned, Leah, like this kind of the weight of it. Like, do I even want to teach my children these things? But children are naturally fearless, you know, and I kind of ride on that, you know, they naturally are full of love. They naturally are like lacking of fear. And I love that for them. And
there's so much power in education and knowledge, and, you know, kind of just empowering our kids with that knowledge, right?
That's right. Because they mirror us, right? If we feel fear, they feel fear. If we are open and just like, we're normalizing this conversation, then they normalize it. Yeah, it is.
Yeah, we were reminded recently by a friend of just us naturally being who we are is exposing her child to see a family like ours and like the power of that. Because and when we think about it with Ember, we're like, we're your parents. Like, this is what you got. But for other families to be like, oh my God, thank you for giving my child this gift. Like, they get to see these 2 strong women raising a family together and in love and all the things. That just really has been sitting with my heart. And like, as I'm like listening to all the legislation coming in, I'm also like reminded that us feeling confident to exist and being out and exploring the city we're in, even with that noise, is like, I don't know, it's kind of our own like march of resistance. Like, we still showing up. We still
amazing.
Absolutely. Just by existing, right? And being out there and open, and really anywhere that you share space with someone else, right? They're seeing, they're taking in, Judah's the age of 2 and his other friends are among the same age. And he's like, oh, this friend has 2 moms, or, this friend has a mom and a dad, it's just by seeing, he's able to call that out.
Yes.
Yeah. On talking about like fear to exist, like last year was the first year that Pride was happening after COVID, when we had a child and we had Judah, and I was pregnant, and we were like, this is, there's gun violence everywhere, but there had been like several things that had just happened in big spaces. And, with all the tensions and anti-LGBTQ sentiment that's out there, we were like sitting with this question of like, do we go to Capitol Pride? Like, do we go? And there was part of us that's like, this is so scary to like go as pregnant, go with a small child. But like, we also felt in our spirits, like, we have to go. We have to go, This is us. This is our people. This is our resistance is going, So we did. And we changed our plans. Like initially we were going to take like the little umbrella stroller. But then instead of taking our little umbrella stroller, we were like, no, we got to take the carrier, because like we have to be able to run if we need to. And like, what a terrifying thought to have as you're like going to a family friendly parade. Like, who thinks like that? But we have to think like that.
That's right. Yeah.
And so we went and we had a wonderful time, and nothing bad happened, knock on wood. And, we plan to go next year or this year, we plan to go many years to come. But like you were saying, it's the place that we sit, right?
Yeah. Oftentimes I'm reminded people don't always know what we're having to carry when we enter spaces. Yeah, we get to show up and be proud of who we are. But to enter that space, here are the things I had to think about.
Yeah.
Right.
Yeah.
And when we don't necessarily, when we just kind of are like, that's my ticker, that's my list, we don't always share it. So I think it's really important for other families to hear, like, we've been hearing a friend tell us often, like, thank you for sharing that, because I wasn't thinking about that, or I didn't even, that thought didn't even cross my mind. There's so much beauty in her receiving that and hearing that, and for us to be like, yeah, we should be sharing what we have to talk to ourselves about, talk to our kids about. The importance of that.
But it's an extra step, right? Like it's that extra step. That's another weight. Like we were talking, I think it was one of the other episodes about this like invisible weighted blanket that we're wearing. We just keep tagging them on. We're like, okay, because we're under the microscope everywhere we go. We go to the coffee shop, the restaurant. Like, it's just like you're carrying the weight of representing our family, all these layers, and then the fear. That story, Lauren, we've literally, I think we had that conversation literally a week ago, just about the experience we were grappling with. So thank you.
I feel like that is exactly right. Like that weighted blanket in a sense. And, Amanda and I talk about this too, just how the difference in our presentations as, Mia is a very feminine presenting woman and Amanda's a more androgynous person, about how like the way that we are treated, the way that we're recognized in society too, because, I'll take the kids to the grocery store and somebody will undoubtedly say, oh, wow, they must get their curls from their daddy, and I'm like, okay, well, I used to be able to say, do I want to come out today or not? But now I can no longer say that because I have 2 little sets of ears listening to me, So I'm like, okay, well, I guess we're telling you our whole story, right? So yeah, they actually look like their mom. And we did reciprocal IVF. So I carried her egg, and they do look a lot like her. Isn't that cool? Right? Because little people are listening. And that's just, it's I don't want to say annoying, but it's just kind of like, it's a thing. Like I used to be able to choose if I could come out or not, Amanda, as a more androgynous person, she doesn't get those same kinds of questions. People just kind of assume that you're gay, right?
Yeah. I mean, I guess people just don't ask, right? I think that, my androgynous presenting self, it's just more upfront.
Yeah.
And so I don't get the questions of like, oh, your husband, or anything like that. People just don't start the conversation with me.
I don't get that either.
And that's I think there's a double layer there, right? That can feel like another blanket, right? Of like, well, on top of the racial dynamic, right, that we talk about this all the time in our house around like, so it is a little bit of a gut punch for people to not assume you're the mom and to ask questions about mothering and to have that baseline assumption of what is it like to be, this, that, and the other, like that is a little bit of a gut punch. And we've been talking about that layer of the blanket of like, especially being a Black woman in this world and the weight that comes with that. So there are different weights in a lot of ways as an interracial couple, but they're still heavy.
Yeah, like I don't get the questions around like, oh, she must look like her dad. I don't get that. And I do think it has to do with how I present myself. But I also don't get a lot of questions about being a mom.
I concur with that.
Yeah. And so we've been having a lot of those, like, wonder what's underneath that. And I go by Mada.
But that's a unique name on top. People don't know what to do because it's like, wait, mama, but they're trying to pronounce.
Struggle with people getting it out has been so. There's two parts of it. It's been kind of like, struggle with it. And that's the towards me, I think. But the other part is like, man, that's really hard for people. Like, I wonder is it because it's a word you don't hear often? Is it because it has the da in it? Like, what are you grappling with as you're trying to get it out your tongue? I'm really processing that the last few months.
It is interesting though, like the names that our children call us are so important, right? And we were in music class the other day, and we absolutely love the music teacher. It's for Judah. It's a toddler class, so you can imagine it's like all the lovely chaos in the world. But Judah had been like really missing Amanda, and Amanda goes by Mama, and I go by Mommy. And I had taken him, and he was really upset that we left Mama that day. And so our music teacher said, oh, she handed Judah some drumsticks and said, this is for your mama. And he looked around, he goes, Mama, because, he's thinking Mama's going to come. And I said, Juju, she means mommy. Mommy's right here. Mama is still at home. And our music teacher knows we're a two-mom family. It's, and I'm not faulting her, right? Because she's just passing out drumsticks, right? But it is just that layer of knowing how important words are and how important names are.
Yes.
So true. That's such a, that is, yes, that hits it on the nose. That's such a good story.
And just that extra step. We're just asking people to take an extra beat, just a quick extra step to pause, to just, and maybe it is too much to ask and but we do think about this a lot where, language is so powerful, it matters. And our kids are listening so closely, and that's a perfect example. So thank you for sharing that. That kind of segues us to our last question for you, which is, what do you wish more parents of all backgrounds, whether they're in our community or not, what do you wish other parents would do more of or less of? Or if you had one thing to just be like, oh, if I had the magic wand, here's what I wish could be true, that more parents did this, what would you both say?
That's such a great question. I love it. I feel like I could say so many things.
Same here.
So I really feel like seeing the world through our children's eyes is like so important, right? And to understand that like children don't have implicit biases, that they're not born with that thing. They're not born with that. And I don't really feel like children are ever too young to start having important conversations with, whether it's about, the structure of your family or, there's been all of this anti-drag legislation, which is just so bizarre.
It's a great word for it. Yeah.
I can't even make sense of it. We've gone to drag readings before at, the library or different events with our family, and they're so family friendly. They're so beautiful. And I just don't get it. But I think that us kind of modeling for our children love and inclusivity and not, putting labels on things for them, right? Like even with our kids, with Judah, where we don't talk about gender associated with anatomy, right? So like, boys have this, girls have this. We don't really say that, and it's really amazing to watch him kind of just naturally kind of like figure things out, because he identifies as a boy, and he thinks that Malachi identifies as a boy. He thinks that mommy identifies as a girl. He thinks that mama identifies as a boy. He's very consistent that Amanda's a boy. And, he changes like pronouns all the time for everybody. I mean, kids do that anyways. But like, we love that, and it's not, we're not trying to confuse him. No. But we are giving him space, because there's a lot of people who don't fit into those lines, right? Those very linear lines, whether they're transgender or whether they're androgynous or non-binary or intersex or whatever it might be. Like those terms are limiting and hurtful. And so it's just really beautiful to like give that to him. And I'm sure that some future classmates will mess it all up, but I just hope that, maybe he can give something back to his classmates, that he can really just not view the world as so confining.
Yeah. That opportunity for space, right? Like, I think often things get shut down so quickly. I tell Rachel this all the time, like whenever Ember is like having a moment of crying, I'm like, that's actually a beautifully appropriate way to respond to not getting the things she wants right now. Like, there's an opportunity for space for learning, right? And when you are creating an understanding of the world around you and someone immediately shuts it down, that sticks with you for life. Like, we can all think of things that were immediately just been like, don't do that. Oh, okay, now I don't do that still. Like, I'm 30, almost 36. Still don't touch things in the grocery store if I'm not supposed to. Like, is that wired, right?
Yes.
Like, you second guess yourself.
Yes. But when you create space of like, I'm just learning and figuring it out and kind of getting messy with it, like you remember that too. So there's some beauty in that.
I love that, Leah. And I think that that's one thing that, like, for Judah, this is a very like concrete way to interpret it. But like, I always say to him, like, no, we love to get messy. Like, we love to get messy, because he will be like, oh no, green hands, or, whatever it might be. I'm like, no, we love to get messy, because
let's get more green.
Let's get more. Because we just want him to give himself the freedom to get messy, to be messy. Life is messy. And
that's right.
Yeah.
And we can put we just project our own stuff if we're not really intentional and deliberate about that stuff. So that, those examples are so powerful. What would you add?
But I think the one last thought on that is, with raising donor conceived children, it's been really valuable for us in our process to listen to other donor conceived people, because when we were first choosing to have donor conceived children, it took us a minute to even like, we knew that we wanted an open ID donor, or like an ID disclosure donor, but we didn't really know about connecting with donor siblings. Like, we're like, at one point we were like, I think we'll like follow our kids' lead on that. But the more that we listen, the more we're like, no, like, we have to be the lead. Right. And so it's been really amazing for us to kind of conceptualize, like, what some people kind of, when you think about having donor conceived kids, you're like, that might be confusing, or that might, whatever, people think that might be. One, I don't think it is, but I think that it is not those things, because we intentionally make it not those things, right? Like, we are going before them. We are giving our kids as much information as we can about their donor. We're telling, them about stories that we've learned from the limited information that we have on those donor profiles that we get, right? Which is probably a lot to other people, but still not a lot with half of your biology, right? But really just giving them not only all the information, but also their donor siblings. So I will tell you, this has been really fun for us to connect. Because, when those relationships are like new, and that they're growing, and the kids are also young, and, but it's so much fun as a family who does not have a lot of biological family that's either close or on board or whatever it might be. It's been really cool to think about, like, No, these younger siblings are like our children's family, you know? And I hope, that they can have beautiful relationships, meaningful relationships that, maybe eventually a couple of them will want to go to college together. I mean, maybe this is just, silly thinking, but we are excited to give them that community. It's just like an extra added bonus, right? It's really cool.
That's pretty awesome. Thank you for sharing that. Actually.
Yeah, thank you. Is there anything you would add, Amanda, if you had the magic wand, or just anything you want to build on there?
Yeah, no, I think that Lauren is pretty spot on. I think, leading with love, right? With more families leading with acceptance and love, and, the less judgment. Because kids, like Lauren said, are so just uninhibited, and if we follow sometimes their lead, I think that parents could learn a lot.
Yeah.
Thank you so much.
Oh, y'all are amazing.
I know you're such a force of light and love in the world. Thank you for just sharing your journey with the world. I know it does take courage and strength and vulnerability to put your stories out there every day, and just to share all the layers of your family. But it's just meant the world to us to know that you're out there, and it's just been such a gift to finally meet you and to have this conversation.
Yeah.
You guys, thank you so much. This has been so much fun to connect with you guys. We really we love the work that you guys are doing on this podcast, the conversations that you're having with people, the light that you're bringing, to the complexities that we have as, queer families.
And what we have to navigate. Yeah, it's so important. Thank you for letting us into this space and sharing this space with us.
Thanks for joining us today, y'all. We'd love to stay connected on Instagram and Facebook, so you can find us at 2 Wives and a Spark, all spelled out.
If you enjoyed today's episode, share it with a friend so we can keep the sparks of connection going. If you want access to our episodes as soon as they drop, click that subscribe button. Every rating and review helps others find us, so thank you in advance for letting us know what you think. I'm Leah.
And I'm Rachel.
Thank you for listening to 2 Wives and a Spark.